Hey everybody, it's time to pull up a chair, settle in, and listen close. I'm your host, Mary Fina, and this is the Take Your Seat podcast where women's stories spark possibility. Today we're sitting down with Sophia Lee, a fourth-year civil engineering student at the University of Auckland and an intern at Frequency with previous experience at KiwiRail as well. In this episode, we'll hear about how she navigated these internships, what she's learned, and the advice she has for those who may be reaching this point in their degree. Hi, Sophia!
Thank you so much for having
I'm so
me.
glad to have you here. For the listeners, I met her through Women in Engineering network, and we actually worked together for a couple of events because she was my lead for our committee, which is great. So I've known her for quite a bit. The first thing that I want to ask you so that everyone knows, everyone's caught up, is what do you actually do? What is a day-to-day? What is a normal day of an internship at Frequency in New Zealand?
A great question, loaded question, starting off strong. So basically, I'm not sure how much you want me to go into, but I'm going to give you all the frills as well. So not just me going to work. So I get up around 5:30. This is on a good day. Yeah, just because I know it's only like 10, 15 minutes of traffic extra, but I like to beat that. So it only takes me like a quarter of an hour to get into work, but I don't actually go to work first. Yeah, I'm kind of on that grind. But yeah, it's a great time, I feel like, internship season to realign and get like an early start going, and hopefully you can carry that into the semester. But yeah, so I go to the gym or a swim actually. Sometimes I decide what I'm feeling on the day. And then I'll do a little workout, get the blood pumping, and then I'll shower, and then I'll go to work, and then I'll have my chia pudding, and then I'll say hi to everyone. It's very cute, but not many people are in at 7, but the team that I'm currently working with are all in pretty early. Yeah, then I start with my emails, all of the admin things, just checking in on what I need to do for the day. And then it's kind of different to my last internship, but I guess all internships, they'll have you working on like whatever small projects or work that they can allocate to you. So currently today, for example, I was working on variation orders, which is probably like, what the hell is a variation order? Which is basically, oh, by the way, guys, I'm doing project management this summer. And yes,
Thank you for telling them. I was
you.
going to tell you to tell them. Yes, she's a project manager at Frequency this year.
It's very exciting because I guess it's not as traditional as other internships you can get in like civil engineering, but it is definitely like a subset of the industry. But yeah, so I've been looking at variation orders, which are okay, say like a contractor is doing work on a project, right? And this is how I understand it, by the way. I feel like since I'm only 2 weeks in, it could be wrong. But my understanding is that, the contractor will be doing work and they would have agreed, they would have signed a contract with the client. So whoever they're doing work for, and then, they'll be carrying out their work. But then sometimes they'll be like, oh, wait, we didn't account for this. Oh, we need to fix it. Oh, but, it's out of our scope. Like it's not in the contract that we signed. Like this isn't work that we agreed to do, but we'll still do it. But you just got to pay us a little extra to, cover costs, etc. And then so that comes through as like a variation order. Or sometimes they can be given orders to make a change.
I love how like you're talking about how you don't exactly know how it works, but like you're just like you're learning on the job, right? What's your favorite thing in your day-to-day?
I don't want to be a cop-out and say the people, but I feel like people and culture for me personally is what makes a job. And I feel like I've had really nice experiences, and I've been lucky enough to be at companies that do have really good people and very, very good culture. And what I guess that really depends. You're probably like, what counts as good culture? I feel like when you go, if it aligns with, just your vibe and I guess what you find important, then it's a good culture. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but I feel like it is very
it makes
vibes
sense.
based.
It makes sense. It's like when you walk into, you don't hate it when you walk into the room. Do you know what I mean? Because when I first start a job, I have like this anxiety. If it's not a good job, like for example, I worked in retail and I could feel the anxiety as I walk into the retail job, and I just like, okay, this is not the culture that we want.
Yeah, there's also like this factor that I didn't consider, which is my energy levels. Because usually I feel like I'm quite an energetic person, but I feel like, obviously not to shame my last job, I think I was like low-key really out of it because I would be really tired when I got back from work. A really good indicator that this job is really feeding my soul is that I'll come back from work, even though I like got up at 5:30, and I still have so much energy. And that's how I know, I'm in a good place. But yeah, and that's without
really
caffeine.
good.
So yeah.
That's so good because it's like a normal, like, 9 to 5. I guess it's also starting from 5 AM, but it's like a normal 9 to 5. It's your full-time work, and,
Mm.
like, if you still have a life after work, that means you're not completely drained, so that's a good
Mm.
sign. That's so just talking about that as well, in your internship, there's some good moments, and then there's some hard moments. What's been the hardest so far?
Let me tell you, like, not knowing things and feeling a bit useless, to be completely honest. Yeah.
Clock that, clock that.
I'm not sure if this is, like, relatable for other people as well. I hope it is, otherwise I'm gonna be like,
I
"Damn."
think it definitely someone will relate to you.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I feel like for this company, everyone is pretty switched on and it's quite like a high pressure environment compared to, say, maybe other ones. And not in a negative way. I just recognize that they have a lot of work that actually needs to be done. So
Mm.
having me on board, although it's like a great learning opportunity for me, it does almost come at a cost that they have to slow down and they have to explain everything to me. So then sometimes if I don't get what I'm supposed to be doing on the first go, it can be a bit anxiety inducing because obviously I don't want to interrupt these people more than they've already like
Yeah.
committed time to me already. So yeah, I guess that's one like area of anxiety for me is not performing maybe as well as I could be
Which
or
is
I'm
totally valid
yeah.
though, totally valid
Yeah.
though.
Thank you.
If that's the toughest moment, how do you think you overcame feeling useless, as you said, or feeling as if you didn't know how to do anything?
That's a great question. I feel like going back to it, right? Say this is a thought that I have, right? Where it's like, oh, like I feel a bit useless. Well, my next thought will be like, oh, well, obviously I'm not trying to be useless. So I feel like intent is half of it, right? And then the other half is like, if I feel like this, even though I know my intent isn't bad, what actions can I take? So half of it, half of
Mm,
that, so I'm like splitting it into quarters now, is like, obviously I'm an intern, like I'm not going to know that many things. So if I'm willing
exactly,
to learn,
exactly.
yeah, I feel like that's a pretty big factor. But also, I feel like there's also an opportunity for me to try and figure some things out by myself as well. But now I feel like we have so many tools. Shout out Microsoft Copilot, ChatGPT. Obviously, like don't 100% rely on AI, but sometimes like
Mm,
for me, there's a lot of acronyms in project management. I feel so sometimes it would be
mm.
helpful to just hop onto AI and be
Jargon,
like,
jargon is
oh,
hard.
yeah, for sure. So then that kind of feels a bit better because that's a load eased off, like me asking my grad
Yeah,
buddy, like, hey, what does this mean? But obviously, it's still good to like confirm, like,
yeah,
hey, also, like, when you catch them, be like, oh, I was wondering about this. Is this sound for this? So I
yeah.
guess there's always a bit of a backup. But
No,
yeah.
that's awesome. Like, I feel like it's hard to not be disheartened if you feel not helpful within a team, especially in an environment where
Mm,
everyone's go, 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 and everyone knows what to
yeah.
do. But as an intern, I feel like that's a pretty normal feeling, and I'm sure someone else feels that way as well. What do you think helped you get an internship as an applicant? What did you do differently, and you wish to like tell people?
I wish I knew what set me apart, but I honestly I don't know, but I can tell you what I would recommend. Like I'll tell you what I did. Basically, Ingrid, who is the lovely HR hiring manager, I don't know her exact
Mm-hmm.
role, sorry Ingrid, but she is really really involved with the university because Frequency sponsor two of the clubs. So they sponsor the Civil and Structural Engineering Students Association, as well as WIN, which is what we're part of, Women in Engineering Network. Shout out to Courtney King. She is the university's, like, I think it's the employment liaison officer or
Yes,
something
I think I've
along
seen
those
her
lines.
emails before. Yes, I
Yeah,
do
so I feel like
recognize her
the
name.
yes, absolutely. She's always sending out good opportunities and stuff. So it's kind of like a mix of those. So Ingrid would come to a lot of the club events that I was part of, and also Courtney actually links up with a lot of employers, and then she'll invite them for the Careers Expo. So basically, how
Uh-huh.
I met Ingrid was about when I was in second year, it must have been, so first year of my civil engineering degree. I
Mm-hmm.
went to go get my CV checked because the career expos, they showcase all of the different employers, but they
Mm-hmm.
also have a
Mm-hmm.
CV check, a LinkedIn check, maybe some other bits and
Oh
bobs. I'm not
yeah.
100% sure.
Those are really
Yeah,
good
it was really good.
resources.
No, like literally. And I thought it was just the CVs, not just, but I thought it was the CVs people were looking at the CVs, but it turns out they had industry, like HR people checking CVs, which I think is
Oh,
so valuable. So Ingrid ended up looking at my CV, and then at the end she was like, oh, by the way, like we should totally connect on LinkedIn. So I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to. So we've just been like connected on LinkedIn since then. And then earlier this year, you know, there was an opportunity which I found out Frequency was hiring for an intern. So I did put my name forward. But yeah, I think building those relationships with people is super important. And I know people, I think I was really lucky because a lot of people told me to network when I was like first year, second year. So I feel like I
Yeah.
could really get in there. And you know, some people think it's a fluke, like, oh, that you know how far will networking get you, but I'm here to tell you it can definitely get you places. So
Yeah.
I'd say, yeah, definitely do that. And like, I don't know,
Yeah.
like, yeah, sometimes you'll see advice on, I'm not sure if it was just me who went down this YouTube path. Like, this is kind of showing how much of a geek I am, but I'd be like,
No,
oh,
no,
like, you know,
no.
because
Share. Do share. Do share.
okay, yeah. So I'm actually quite nervous for interviews and like face to face. I
Mm.
know sometimes it might not seem like that, but I feel like I have the tendency to yap, which might be clear from this. Yeah, so I'm
No,
always scared to
we
like,
love your yap here though. We do
thank
appreciate your yap
you.
on the podcast.
Yeah, it's like definitely a double-edged sword for me though, because I'm aware sometimes I can overspeak. So sometimes I would go into YouTube and like, you know, look at tips for not overspeaking, like how I should conduct myself
Mm.
in an interview.
I
And I
can
feel
relate to
like,
that.
yeah, I definitely think looking at some of those videos are very helpful to get you like a base idea. I don't think you should directly go like and copy and paste that in, but it can help give you a good structure. So having that is also very helpful if you tend to, you know, go for
Mm.
interviews or you need to meet someone from a
Yeah.
company. But yeah, those are my tips. I'm not sure if that was kind of all over the place,
No,
but
that
hopefully
was
that was helpful.
good. So, those were some networking tips. What do you think on paper would look good in a CV if someone was like an HR manager? What did you
Oh,
put in
for sure.
yours, for example?
I just put everything I do. So even if you might not think it's relevant, retail I've heard is very important, you know, because it shows that you have people skills and you've been hustling. Like
Mm.
you don't just sit on your ass all day and do nothing, you know,
Mm-mm.
like you still, even though it might not be engineering related, you still do things. And obviously all of your extracurriculars, like I think people just want passionate individuals. So it doesn't matter what it is. Say you really like gaming. Okay, so you have like an esports club and you know, you played in the uni championships or whatever, like put that in. Like it doesn't matter what you're into as long as you know, if you are really passionate about something, it doesn't matter what, even in your spare time, if you can put that down or if that can translate and you can let the hiring manager like see your passion for something, I feel like it's pretty good because it makes you more well-rounded and not just a student. It makes you like more human, you know? Like obviously
Mm-mm.
everyone has their hobbies and stuff. So yeah, I feel like that's important too.
From what I've gathered, it sounds like people skills are really important and it's not all about grades, I feel like. Because you didn't even talk about grades. You didn't even touch on that
Thank
at
God we did
all.
it. Yeah, yeah, like I'm definitely not like a what do you call it, like Dean's on a list. Unfortunately,
Mm.
I'm not. I wish I was, but yeah, I feel like
You were part
willingness
of
to
Dean's
learn.
leadership program though.
Oh
So,
yes,
like,
yes,
come
soft
on.
skills. Yes, but
Soft skills
not
are important
academic.
too, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like not to be like I need some representation of people who like are not Dean's on the list, but I feel like the people I surround myself at university, they do exceptionally well in academics. So it's kind of sometimes really difficult for me to feel valid and feel like I'm on the right path because I don't, you know, I'm not A plus, A plus, A plus, A plus.
Yeah.
Like I'm not 9.0 GPA. Like I might not even get like first class honors and I'm kind of just vibing.
I feel like there's a lot of myths, or maybe it's not a myth, it's just like something that people internally think that they need to
Mm,
get these high grades to even bag an internship. But like you've bagged 2 internships since you were in second year. Second year
I
internships are
have.
quite difficult as well because companies tend to look for penultimate students as well, like third year
Mm,
students, because obviously they've got a
mm,
little bit more experience than second years. But getting
mm,
an internship in your second year is really impressive. So you need
mm.
to give yourself some credit for that. How
Pat on the
do
back.
you think like grades actually like look in terms of a, an HR
Mm.
person's or a company's eyes?
For sure. Okay, so I feel like I can speak on this because I have actually asked some of the HR people what their thoughts are.
Mm.
And before I get into what they say, I will say though, there are definitely some companies that I've encountered that will definitely only want super academic people, and that's
Mm.
fine as well. I feel like there's no hate, but obviously if that's
Yeah.
not what you are and that's not what you are aligning to, then there are plenty of other companies
Mm.
and places that do not weight that so heavily. But in terms of how well people are doing, I feel like as long as I've heard from some HR people that they don't care as long as you pass. And then also there are other people that I know that have failed but still managed to get internships. I feel like it does depend on how badly, not how badly you want it, but it's the passive, like don't
The
let that knock
effort
you
you
down, you know?
show.
Yeah, like even if you don't, if you say you fail a class, like that's not, don't give up is what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
Yeah, resilience and just like getting, because engineering is a hard degree, right? I feel like if you're like getting through it and you're trying your best, people kind of see that as well.
exactly. And yeah, as long as you obviously try your hardest, and I feel like if you put your best foot
Mm.
forward, you should be all good, you know?
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah. See, I love that because these are like we're debunking things that people believe.
Mm,
Like, well, coming into my first year, obviously we try to our best to get good grades, but it might not be a deal breaker.
exactly.
Circling back to just like the networking bit, what do you think is like a good networking tip for those who might not have tried it before or are too scared or too like into their heads?
Oh my gosh. I feel like I have a very rogue mentality where it's honestly like, just put yourself out there, like always just
Mm,
and just be yourself.
yeah.
But for those who might be a bit reserved or a bit shy when it comes to networking, one thing maybe I could recommend is kind of scaffolding your way up, right? So say maybe you're scared to, talk to the head of HR for this company, right? But maybe you could start by talking to a grad or someone who's intern there and then,
Mm,
talk to them a bit, be comfortable and then see if they have like a mentor, senior, higher up, or maybe even joining. I know a lot of clubs or specs have their own mentorship programs. So maybe getting a mentor there. And then maybe after some scaffolding and you've gotten comfortable talking to the grads and stuff, then you'll feel more
mm,
equipped to approach, like an HR manager
yeah.
or someone, yeah, about senior, more senior. Yeah.
So, networking is really important, but if there is any other skill that you would recommend people work on that in general aren't talked about in uni, what would that be?
Let me cook on that. Let me cook on that. Like a skill that isn't taught in uni. Like I hate to say it, but I feel like uni is pretty good at covering everything as long as you exhaust all of the opportunities. As in, right? Like only if you only go to class online and you never come in, obviously you're not going to get a full uni experience. But if you're coming in, you're doing all the
Mm,
courses, you're involved in university, I feel like they kind of have got you covered on all bases. But yeah, like that's kind of
mm.
like a cop out answer, but that's honestly all I can think of. I mean, I guess if I could go back in time, I would make myself learn how to golf just because I feel like that's a fun networking sport. So personally, that's what I would tell myself. Yeah, I feel like it's quite old fashioned,
Sophia's
like
number one tip is to learn how to golf.
golf. Yeah, I go to the driving range sometimes, but I don't really play on the like par like these holes. Like I don't know what that means. So yeah, but I
Mm.
wish I did. I feel like it's a fun sport, and sometimes I hear people
That's
talking
such a
about it.
quirky tip. I love that, honestly.
Yeah,
Just like learn how
so
to play
that's the only thing I
golf. It'll
could
solve
ruffle
all your
up.
problems.
Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah.
at the core of it, I feel like engineering is for the people. We really got to be good at talking.
Looking at everything that you've been through so far, how do you think this internship has changed your mindset in terms of being like an engineer? Like, because you've already
Mm,
tasted some real work experience. How did that
mhm.
change your mindset?
That's a really good question. I guess in terms of mindset changes, I feel like there have not been any major ones as of now. But in terms of finding out what I want to do or having a better understanding of what fields interest me, I do quite like project management. So I definitely think that will be on my
Mm,
radar. I don't know what that will look like because even though I've had to in the process of my second internship, under the belt, I still feel very in terms of information, I feel really like underinformed was the word that I'm trying to find.
mm.
But yes, but with that in mind, I feel like talking to these people at my current job, it's made me want to not dream bigger. That feels a bit cuckoo, but low-key in a way
No,
dream bigger. I know that's so cheesy, but I
no,
guess we were
it's
talking,
not.
yeah, we were talking about like overseas work experience and how that can be really scary. I'm not sure if anyone else will relate to this, but I'm a Jaffa born and bred, and I've been lucky enough to, live at home my whole life. And I went
Mm,
to uni just like 30 minutes bus ride,
mm,
maybe
mm.
a 45 minutes. Okay, on a bad day. But I've stayed in the same place I've always stayed, and I feel like I haven't had to venture very far. But talking to these people at work, it's made me want to venture far. You know, not only for like
Yeah,
a
this is a
professional.
mindset change. This is.
Yeah, right. Okay, thank you. I feel justified. But yeah, like
Yeah.
not only to experience work through a different lens, but also, I guess, life, right? Because living at home gives you a certain vibe. So I feel like it's a
Mm.
mixture of both of those, if that kind of makes sense. But yeah.
Yeah, it's opening your eyes to like new horizons, I feel like,
Mm,
and you can definitely
mm.
reach more. I feel like that's a really good change in mindset. Like definitely if you ever do that, I'm going to invite you back here and you're going to talk about it because
Okay, no
that'll
pressure
be really
though.
cool.
Yeah, I really
No, yeah,
hope.
no pressure, but I love how that has changed for you. So do you think your view of success has also changed because of like this mindset shift?
That is a really good question. I feel like no, because the way that I view success has always been in my own lens. And I don't know if that's kind of too cryptic, but what I mean by that is for me, right, I feel like happiness is my leading value in life,
Like a
like period.
compass,
Yeah, like I
like
just want to
whatever
be
makes you
happy.
happy.
Exactly. So in terms of work, what that's just shown me working here is that this is an environment or maybe like a field that makes me happy. So that's really good to know. But in terms of chasing success, I feel like it's always just been the same for me. Just being happy is successful. So I feel like it's opened my eyes up, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily like changed how I view success, if that kind of makes sense. I definitely think that it helps me. It's like an extra piece of knowledge that helps me inform my decisions. But yeah.
So your internships right now, you work on real life projects. How do you feel seeing those real life projects like actually come to life? Because obviously like this is a real thing. This is no longer like just your like
Mm,
140 project, whatever 309, whatever project that you do in
mm.
uni. How does it feel to see the impact of like actual work?
I feel like I can't really say anything about this yet for frequency because, you know, I'm still only 2 weeks in.
Mm,
But in terms of KiwiRail, it was great because
mm.
I felt like I could like imagine the direct consequences of the work I was doing. So for example, I would like look at culverts. Okay, this kind of sounds boring when I say it, but it was really good at the
I
time.
actually found out that you walked like 100 kilometers or you did like 100 kilometers or something.
Yes, I forgot about that. But yeah, so basically they have this thing called like culvert report. Oh,
What did you do at KiwiRail, by the way? So let's talk about your other
oh
internship now.
gosh.
What did you do at
Okay.
KiwiRail?
Okay, so at KiwiRail, I helped update their internal culvert standard, and I also helped with a lot of their inspection reports. So those were like the two main tasks I had. But yeah,
For the listeners, just so they know, what is a culvert?
well, that's a great question. Okay, so basically, in terms of KiwiRail, but a culvert is basically, from my understanding, it's yeah, like a massive. It's just think of a massive pipe, but it's underground most of the time, or like
Mm.
under
Okay,
something.
okay.
There are definitely some culverts that can be above ground, but in terms
Mm.
of KiwiRail, I think of it as underground because they were mostly carrying water. So, because say there's a hill and then you have to cut through with rail, right? Instead of the water going over the tracks, because you don't want that. You know, you have a culvert that goes under the tracks and it brings
Oh,
the water to the
I
other side.
see. I see. Okay, so
Yeah,
it kind of directs the water flow away from the rails so that,
yeah,
yeah, okay, I get.
exactly. Yeah,
If you don't understand that, listener, I think you have to Google that. But that's
yeah, and
okay.
also. Yeah, sorry, that's not the only scenario that a culvert exists, but in terms of KiwiRail, that was like the most common
Yeah,
type,
that's
which
like what
was
you
yeah,
did. Okay, cool.
yeah. Oh yeah, so
And a
basically
hundred
the
of that.
yeah, so basically the 100 kilometers comes from the inspection report. So every, I think it was K, they would have like multiple, like up to 20 different culverts on 10 kilometers of track, right? So they have
Mm.
all of these different lines all across the country, right? North Island, South Island, whatever. And they would take pictures of these culverts. And the inspection report was basically grading them. So what was the condition of the barrel inside of the culvert? Were there cracks? Were there vegetation growing? Was it blocked? Anyway, so you'd mark on all of these factors, and that helped them determine what needed fixing. And
Mm.
because I love KiwiRail, but they are obviously financially constrained, so like determining the severity at which the culverts were at, if they were in a poor condition, which helped them prioritize, you know, fixing the bad culverts and the ones that were of high importance. So say it was a bigger one and there was only one of them for like 5 kilometers, right? That's obviously more major than if one of the smaller ones were blocked, but there are at least like three more nearby, you know?
Mm.
I'm not sure if that makes sense. But yeah, so that's kind of what
No, it
cohort
makes
reports
sense.
were doing. Yeah. So you just look at the photos and then there was like an internal standard, which I also helped work on, that you could use to judge the cohort. So you're like, oh, I'm looking at this, like, how do I know if it's good or
Wow.
bad? Right? Like, how do I know
Yeah.
what mark to give it? So you look at the
Yeah.
standards.
That's really
Yeah, for sure.
cool.
Yeah. It was definitely like repetitive work in terms of like, you're just doing the report, but I feel like every cohort was different. And I say that with my heart. So yeah.
When you first started at KiwiRail, did you also have that familiar feeling of not knowing what to do in the beginning?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like no matter how much you prepare or how many people you talk to, you're still never gonna know until you're there and doing it. Well, that's for me at least.
And then from the start of that internship to the end of the internship, I feel like you've become like really quite confident in what you do. So obviously you've gone over like, that initial kind of friction when you don't know what to do. And I guess are you just approaching the same thing at frequency now? And if someone was facing the same thing, like what would you tell them?
At KiwiRail, I feel like I was given very clear instructions on, what I should be doing. And I got given the same tasks where I felt confident to build that skill set over time, if that kind of makes sense. Whereas at Frequency, it's not quite like that. There is a little bit of similar overlapping tasks, but for the most part, everything's still very new. And I feel like every day I'm seeing something new. And
Mm,
I anticipate that I will continue to see different things because the structure is slightly different. Like in KiwiRail, I was with one team the whole time, the same people
mm.
working on the same stuff. And at Frequency, the plan is to rotate me through the little subgroups. So even though
Yeah,
I'm just,
that's
yeah, so I'm
interesting.
getting like, yeah, like little snippets and I'm learning all of this new information. And it kind of like, I'm not sure how much my brain has retained, but I've been writing everything down. So hopefully I am
Mm,
taking everything in, but there is a lot more
yeah.
information and I feel like it's definitely way faster and I don't have as much time to consolidate that knowledge and practice, so to speak, what I've learned, if that kind of makes sense. In terms of like giving advice to someone if they were in that position, I would say write everything down or like make
Mm.
notes to yourself. Like, it doesn't have to be writing, but you can like do a little vlog for yourself, like, oh, like pretend like you're teaching an intern. So, like, now you're the
Mm.
intern, right? But be like,
Saving
"Okay,
technique.
wait, you" yeah, exactly, like, "Oh, like, you need to know how to do this? Okay, so you go into here, and then you do this, and then that, and then basically we do this before" you know what I'm saying? Like,
That's
maybe
really cute. That's a really a good
yeah.
way to do it. What a unique way to learn, honestly. How do you think you try to build that trust or like that credibility while you're still learning?
Yeah, I feel like that's a tough one because I feel like I'm quite soft on myself. Well, not completely that soft, but I give myself a lot of allowance. Like, in terms of not understanding something, instead of like beating myself up about it or being, anxious, I feel like as long as I've exhausted as many options as I can, if I still don't get it at the end of the day, I'm just like, you know what, at the end of the day, I am still an intern. I'm still learning. We're
Mm.
all young. Like, it's not the end of the world if I don't understand it. And then I kind of just feel better about it. But obviously, I feel like to build credibility, one thing that I can always do is try and think ahead. So I'm not sure if this is
Mm.
going to make much sense, but obviously you are bound by what you know, right? And you obviously don't know that
Yeah.
much, but sometimes you can kind of try thinking it. Like for example, today, right? So basically I'm working the frequency has like a diamond structure. So there's like the top is like the lead and then you've got associates, they call them like senior associates, and
Mm,
then
mm,
you've got like
mm.
a grad
Yep,
or
yep,
whatever
yep.
in your diamond. But yeah,
That makes
Emilio is
sense.
a senior associate, I want to say. So or an associate. But basically he's working at Frequency as well in the same team, and he's kind of like my boss in a way.
Mhm.
And he came over and he was like asking me what I was doing. I was like, "Oh, I'm still doing this," and he was looking like, "You've been on that for a while." And I was like, "Yeah, I know, I'm sorry. But I don't really know what to do, right?" And then so we kind of just went through it together and then he put me on the right track again. And
Mm.
then obviously I was like, I kind of like, damn, like I kind of maybe I should lock in more. Like, but then I obviously at that time I was like, oh well, I've tried what I can. Like I genuinely didn't really know how to do this. And I was taking my time trying to figure it out, which is kind of a good thing, kind of bad, right? Because if you take time to try take initiative, that's taking time. Whereas you could just ask someone and they'll get it
And
done. But
everyone's like, "Go, go,
yeah.
go." Like you said, everyone's
Yeah.
like knows what they're
Yeah, everyone's
doing.
quite busy still as well, so that's another factor. But after that, I kind of try to think ahead and I was like, okay, well, we've just got all of this information. Where is this information going to? Oh, it's going to this guy that we need to email. So then I just started drafting an email with all of that information that he had helped me like summarize. So I feel like, and then he was like, okay, cool, because we're gonna need that to send that anyway. So I feel like that was a good first step. And obviously, it doesn't undo me being slow or me not knowing
Mm.
how to do certain things, but I feel like you can kind of try and forward think in some circumstances, if that kind of makes sense, you know?
Like you said, you're bound to what you know, but I guess by forward thinking, like you show your employer that you're still really keen to learn. Like just
Mm,
I think you were telling me earlier, like just having that willingness to learn is really important in an internship. So I guess it's how you build credibility without knowing
mm,
how to do things. So
mm.
yeah, no, thank you for that as well. So we're kind of reaching the end of the episodes. We're gonna ask you a little more questions. With this experience that you have now, what would you tell like your first year self?
Mm. I'd say don't stress because I feel like there is a lot of stress regardless. You know, I feel like engineering is always, well, I don't know if it's stressful is the right word to use for it, but sometimes I feel stressed because there's always
No,
more to
stress is the
learn.
right word, queen. Stress is
Right?
quite
Like,
right.
thank you. Because even when say you're in university, right, you have so much content to learn. And then there's internship season while you're still studying and you have to, it's like fight,
Mm.
internal fight.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God,
Oh, I have a
can I
question for
finish
that
this? Oh,
actually.
yeah,
Hold that thought.
for
When
sure.
do you think that people should apply? Like in New Zealand, we like have the internships in like November,
Oh.
December, January. When do you think people should apply?
Okay, so here's my take on it. And I say that because the first year I was applying, so when I was in second year, I feel like there was so many advertisements on all of the different job sites. And then this year when I was applying, all of them disappeared. So I feel like now since the job market is honestly so competitive, like you really need to be out there, like boots on the ground, if you will,
Mm,
like trying to network and like, going through maybe not traditional paths, as in go on their website and apply because I feel like a lot of them stopped
mm,
posting them on the large because that's what I used to use, right? Like
mm.
the large platforms like Seek or Student Job Search or whatever, Indeed, literally anything. I feel like most of them now just they keep it on their website or their internal ones because I feel
Yeah.
like it's
Oh,
so
yeah. They do.
competitive.
They
There's
do. They
so
do.
many people. Yeah, there's so many people applying that they're like, well, why would I post it here if we're getting so many people? So I'd
I see.
say
I see.
just yeah, like make a list if you want and just apply
Yeah.
to
That's a
them.
good thing to
I
know,
think
actually.
yeah, some of them open really early, but definitely some open in
Yeah.
like March, as early as March. But I would say that most of them maybe June, July area. Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to the other question now that I've interrupted you, but I was really curious when you
No, you
started looking
all
through
good.
it. But it was really good to know that you kind of have to like really have to put your effort into this, and probably need
Mm.
to start early, right? If they open as early as March, like no pressure to everyone, no, but keep that in mind. Yeah. So what would you tell your first year self? Like now that you know what you know.
Oh yeah, definitely don't stress. And I say that because as I was saying before, like I feel like everyone's so stressed in engineering because there's always more learning to do, which is a curse and a blessing, right? Because I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of insatiable hunger out there in the cohort where everyone's always so keen to rip into stuff, which is so motivating and it's honestly quite inspiring, right? Because everyone's trying to better themselves. And even when you graduate, like the learning doesn't stop. There's so much development that is done for engineers because I guess it's always a changing field. Like that's why when you get chartered, like you still have to do professional development. Like it's never ending. Which is if you like look at it, you can look at it two ways, right? It's like, oh my God, it's never ending shit. Or you can be like, wait, it's never ending. This is awesome. I can be a lifelong learner, you know?
Mm, 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 mm.
So I feel like you don't need to stress about trying to know everything or, overload because it can be quite overwhelming, right? So I would say to myself, don't stress, just have healthy habits and obviously still enjoy life. Like as much as I love engineering, I don't think that can be your whole life. So definitely prioritize other things. Think about what other, life goals you want to have. I think the company I'm at is really good at doing this because everyone works hard and plays hard. And I don't say that like in a
Mm.
token way. I genuinely mean everyone like actually hustles so hard at work. And then all of these people in their spare time, their hobbies that they have, they go like 100 on that. And I'm just like, that's so cool. So even in their leisure time, they're trying to make the most of that. And I feel like that's been really inspiring for me. And I really want to start picking it up again. And like, because it's nice to work towards something, right? Like that's
Mm.
playing hard. As much as you commit and you push yourself academically, you also have to still enjoy other facets of your life as
Yeah.
well,
Work hard, play hard. So now that we're finishing up, here is my last question for you. What does taking your seat mean to you now in a male dominated field like engineering?
That's a great question. I feel like that kind of looks different for me in university versus out in the workforce. And what I mean by that is I feel like I've been really fortunate to be at companies where there is like almost, how do I even explain it? I guess there's almost no emphasis on it because there's no prejudice is what it feels like to me currently, right? I feel like my experience is capped at what I have experienced. I feel like since I'm an intern and even at the grad level, I feel like there might be more systemic issues, but I'm just not aware of it because at the intern grad level, I feel like I've not been privy to any prejudice because of my gender, or I haven't felt like a lack of opportunity because of that. So I feel like it's pretty good from where I'm currently standing, but I'm not saying that's the whole industry. Sometimes it's really difficult for women to get into very senior positions, but I feel like I can't really speak on that currently. And I think sometimes maybe you can get into your head a bit about it. Like, I won't lie, like, Frequency does not have a lot of female grads, like, proportional to the male grads. And it's not that they didn't try. I did end up asking the HR hiring managers why that was the case. And there is definitely like an awareness of getting women into STEM and stuff. But sometimes in a male dominated company, I guess it can feel kind of scary because you don't really know how to navigate I guess how to like carry yourself is my personal opinion, because sometimes, I don't know, it's a bit scary, right? Sometimes if you catch yourself thinking about it, you're like, oh, there are no other women. But I feel like it's just getting out of your head and just realizing, everyone's kind. Everyone is not going to exile you because you are a different gender or whatever. So I feel like having that peace kind of helps. But also, this is kind of like a double-edged sword, because in university, I feel like the skew of genders is already pretty, male dominated. So you already low-key have a bit of experience with
That is
socializing with
true.
men, if that kind of makes sense. But yeah, that's kind of how
Yeah.
I see things.
As a woman, like, how do you take your seat in a room where you might be like the youngest one or something like that, or like the least inexperienced one, and also on top of that, you're also like a minority in terms of like gender. Do
Mm.
you know what I mean? How would you encourage someone to like get out of their head that
Mm.
they can and are allowed to take space in these type of fields?
I think the main thing for me is realizing that it doesn't matter if you mess up or if you make mistakes. Like, sometimes being the only woman in a room, I feel like you feel like maybe sometimes the weight of all of, women's responsibilities on your back, as in, like, you're allowed to still make mistakes, and hopefully that won't reflect on all women, if that kind of makes sense, because you're the only one
Yeah.
there. Sometimes it might feel like you are the
Like a
face of
representative.
women.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that can obviously be so jarring and a lot of responsibility. So I feel like sometimes letting that go and being like, oh, well, I'm just another intern. It doesn't really matter, just because I happen to be a woman and maybe women are underrepresented in this field. Like, so be it. It doesn't mean that I'm not allowed to make mistakes or I'm not like allowed to ask questions. I feel like don't get into your head about it too much. I feel like it's also realizing that you're allowed to be there just as much as anyone else. And I think that's just the base of it. It's as simple as that. You're as worthy as everyone else that's in that room.
Thank you so much for all of the golden nuggets that you've bestowed upon all of us. I really hope you enjoyed as well, talking about your
I did.
experiences and, sharing what you've learned and what you are learning, and your experiences. They're very raw, authentic experiences. Everything that you've shared, I'm sure someone will take it and be like, that was helpful. Let me write that down. And I'm sure I will too. So thank you so much for being in this episode today.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for the opportunity.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Take Your Seat podcast. I hope you're leaving this conversation empowered and reminded that a seat at the table is always waiting for you. If today's episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and don't forget to follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep showing up, keep growing, and when that moment comes, take your seat.